Welcome back to the channel. This will be the best wildcard team for Matchday 7, but even if you've used that chip already, this will be very helpful in terms of your transfer plans. All of us will have 6 available moves at our disposal, and this will be definitively the best team for the Club World Cup final. You can't make substitutions or change the captaincy, so your starting 11 and your choice of captain is what you're stuck with once the deadline passes, and we can't make any changes as we could in Matchdays 1 all the way through 6. So the 2 finalists are Chelsea and Paris Saint-Germain, and yes, they are both oil clubs, and we have the whole bracket as you can see on screen here. PSG with a commanding win over Real Madrid, and they are currently the best side in club football and the favourites to win this tournament. And Chelsea have been quietly going about their business with only one loss, which came against Flamengo in the group stages, but Chelsea have been strong in the knockouts, and João Pedro announced himself on the big stage in the semi-finals against his boyhood club Fluminense. So both finalists kept a clean sheet in Matchday 6, and in terms of the complexion of your 50-man squad, you can now pick 8 players from the same club, and then of course 7 from the other finalists, so to speak. But you might have players from eliminated teams in earlier rounds of the competition, maybe some suspensions as well. That is completely irrelevant. They can stay on your bench. All you want to focus on is optimizing your starting 11 to get the most points possible in Matchday 7. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content. That includes Club World Cup Fantasy, and there will be a team selection coming very soon, and the deadline stream to kind of culminate all the coverage of this tournament. And very soon, FPL videos and live streams will return to the channel. The same goes for UCL Fantasy in a couple of months' time. Check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. You can play any booster for the Club World Cup final, whether it's the qualification booster, the wild card, 12th man, or the maximum captain chip, which I'll deploy, and that will be discussed in my team selection. We have a 105 million budget. I also discussed the other aspects of Matchday 7, like having 6 free transfers. The starting 11 is all that matters. The bench is completely irrelevant. You can't make subs or change the captaincy, and you can pick 8 players from the same team. I'll start off with the 2 goalkeepers, and yes, we're very limited. There's only 2 to choose from, but I think what's really important is discussing who you'd start, and a lot depends on your predictions. You might favour Chelsea to go on to win the Club World Cup, and many others will go for Paris Saint-Germain instead. I'll be offering my thoughts as I go along, but I think these 2 goalkeepers are very solid, as they showed back in Matchday 6. There is a massive difference in terms of Club World Cup fantasy points between the 2 finalists and their respective goalkeepers. Donnarumma has 40 for the campaign, whilst Robert Sanchez only has 20, but he did get that 6-pointer for the semi-finals. He was booked, so it actually meant Donnarumma outscored him once more. And between the 2, I'll be completely honest, I would favour Donnarumma overall, but you might want to have one Chelsea defensive coverage anyway and go for all the PSG defenders regardless. So even if you're backing PSG to keep a clean sheet or win this tournament, you'd still want Robert Sanchez over Donnarumma to at least have that sort of safety net just in case Chelsea do the unthinkable and go on to win the Club World Cup final. But those are the only 2 goalkeepers you really have to choose from. Could Jorgensen start over Sanchez? It's very unlikely, but still, it's going to be more possible than Donnarumma being displaced by any of the other Paris Saint-Germain goalkeepers. But between these 2, I'd always be favouring Donnarumma as a Club World Cup fantasy asset. He can make some crucial saves, especially including penalties, which he has done time after time again in the Euros for Italy and for PSG in the Champions League, and he has become one of the best goalkeepers in world football. There is no denying it. Achraf Hakimi is inevitable in Club World Cup fantasy with 57 points in this tournament. That's 21 more than any other defender left in this competition. The closest to him is his teammate Nuno Mendes, and I'd recommend having both of them in your 50-man squad and starting them for the Club World Cup final. But in terms of the other defenders to choose from, William Bachor is suspended, so a differential way of covering their defence would be with Beraldo, who only costs 4.3 million, and that could give you 2 extra points over Nuno Mendes, or the likes of Marquinhos, for example, who all have over 5% ownership. I'm not going to include Hakimi in that debate because he always gets these assists or goals from anywhere, so that's why I think with Hakimi, he is the number 1 pick from any defender, and arguably, he is right up there in the captaincy conversation as well. There are two standouts from me in terms of the PSG team, and from Chelsea, I'll be highlighting some of their best options just in case you decide to go for a different approach for Matchday 7. But Beraldo is that sort of differential you might be looking for to win your mini leagues and rise up the rankings, and it could be one of those game changers that gets you into the top 1k, 10k, maybe top 100 for example. So I think having that sort of differential could be crucial. Not everyone will have that information or be engaged enough to kind of identify Beraldo as that replacement for William Baccio, unless they just check their points scored and then base their decisions off that sort of metric. But the next defender will also be from Paris Saint-Germain in Marquinhos. And one viable question here is the best formation for the Club World Cup final. Now, in recent Champions League campaigns and for the finals there, I've kind of favoured this 4 at the back approach, maybe even a back 5, and the same applies here as well. I'd go for all of the PSG defenders who will start in the Club World Cup final, and then go for one Chelsea option in Cucurella, who is my favourite. But you might want to go for those low-owned players who qualify for the scouting bonus in Chalobah. Maybe you want to go for Levi Colwill, who will now be back from suspension, and you might even go for someone else like Malo Gusto, who I don't think will qualify for the scouting bonus. His ownership will likely be over 5% by the time this video is published. So if you're not going for that sort of bonus differential defender, then just go for Cucurella, who offers more attacking threat than the vast majority of those Chelsea defenders. And with Reece James, he's far too injury prone for me to recommend him fully, and I'm backing PSG to either keep a clean sheet or just win this final anyway. So my approach will be 4 at the back minimum and going for all PSG defenders in this starting 11. One of my biggest regrets in this tournament is not having Ousmane Dembele from the beginning. He did miss the group stages, to be fair, but once he started getting in on the action from Matchday 4 onwards as a substitute, it became very clear that he was getting ready to make an impact either off the bench or as a starter. And in Matchday 6, he got his first start in this tournament and completely destroyed Real Madrid, capitalising on the Antonio Rudiger era, also getting an assist, and he's now the favourite to win the Ballon d'Or with his 35th goal of the season scored against Los Blancos. He is one of the top 2 captaincy contenders for me overall, alongside Hakimi. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who are you favouring between the two Parisians? But from Chelsea, if you're backing them to win, I think Joao Pedro and Palmer will be the best captaincy options from their team. But it could be someone completely random like Marquinhos, who scores the winning goal, maybe Fabian Ruiz, who got the brace against Real Madrid. There are so many options from PSG especially that can be the difference maker in Matchday 7, but Dembele is the most likely on paper. When I talk about the goal scorer odds in the deadline stream, I'd be very shocked if Dembele was on top of that list overall. But next up in this midfield is going to be Doué, who has been slightly disappointing in this tournament. He is very young, but his only goal came against Bayern Munich, and apart from that, it has been blank after blank. You could argue he got a 5-pointer in certain games, especially if you activate the qualification booster back in Matchday 4, but it hasn't really been good enough from Doué, who has so much potential, and I think he could become even better than Dembele in the future. But right now, Ousmane is the main man there for Paris Saint-Germain. It has been a complete turnaround because early in the season, he was left out of the squad against Arsenal due to disciplinary issues and a bit of a falling out with Luis Enrique. He has now gotten the best out of that talented player who was always a case of a lot of potential, but never quite fulfilling it during his time at Barcelona. But now, there is no question about it, he is one of the best players in world football. But the next option will be another attacking choice in the midfield, in Kvaratskhelia, who got 2 assists back in Matchday 1, and he also scored a fortunate goal against Seattle Sounders, but no goal contributions in the knockout stages. But he did score in the Champions League final in that 5-0 win over Inter Milan, and I could see something similar here with the likes of Kvaratskhelia and Doué in the midfield. But I'm going to go for 2 Chelsea options here in this position, and one of them is Cole Palmer, who hasn't been great in 2025, but during the knockouts of this competition, he got 2 assists against Benfica, and he scored the opening goal back in Matchday 5 against Palmeiras, so he'd still be my favourite Chelsea midfielder overall. But you might want to go for Pedro Neto instead if you're going for that sort of route of 4 PSG midfielders, and that could be Fabian Ruiz, Joao Neves taking the place of one of these options, or maybe a substitute like Barcola, who had a great cameo against Real Madrid as well. Enzo Fernandez is also worth consideration, but I would favour the PSG midfielders overall, with Vitinha, Joao Neves and Fabian Ruiz also knocking on the door for this starting 11 and 15-man squad in general. But the question now lies about the formation. Do we go for a 5-4-1, a 4-5-1, or maybe go for 2 or 3 forwards in the starting 11? I'd be favouring only one striker and the rest will be on the bench. And because we've got 8 PSG players already, it's going to be an all-out Chelsea attack. All 3 of these attackers share 14 points in Club World Cup fantasy so far, but the key difference is that João Pedro has only played 2 matches. He came on as a substitute against Palmeiras back in Matchday 5, and he scored a brace in his first ever start for Chelsea against Fluminense, and I think he's the best forward by far amongst any of the players available. That includes Gonzalo Ramos, who could be worth a punt, and he scored the 4th goal against Real Madrid with a tidy finish, and you might want to take that sort of differential route there, but I think it's worth going for the defenders and midfielders from Paris Saint-Germain instead, and only starting João Pedro in this 15-man squad. But I'd also go for Nkuku, who is knocking on the door, and he can play various roles. So in Matchday 6, he played on the right against Fluminense, but he can also play as a second striker, and if needed, he can play as the solo striker. But with Nicholas Jackson and Delap now back from suspension, that won't be necessary. So Jackson came back in Matchday 6, missed a big chance, and Cole Palmer was hurling abuse at him. And of course, Delap was suspended for the semi-finals. He served a 1-game ban after picking up his 2nd yellow card against Palmeiras, and now he's going to be available once more. And in terms of those options, do you go for Delap or Jackson? I'll be honest, it doesn't really matter too much, especially from a budget perspective. This will be very affordable regardless of what you go for, but I'm going to go for Delap here just in case. I think Jackson has been a big disappointment in this tournament. He scored back in Matchday 1, but he also got suspended, and he's been very hit or miss in this competition. At least Delap showed a little bit more in some of his cameos, but what we have seen with a lot of these Chelsea strikers is that they don't even play 60 minutes. In fact, they're subbed off just beforehand, and it can depend on game state as well, but I think João Pedro is the most likely to start and also get a significant amount of minutes, and he's also got that X factor about him. Both his goals against Fluminense were absolutely brilliant, of top quality and unsavable in my opinion. So I have gone for João Pedro, Nkuku and Delap. You can make a case for Gonzalo Ramos or Nicholas Jackson, but if you wanted to remove one of these PSG defenders and then go for Gonzalo Ramos up front as a differential, that isn't a bad idea, and I would encourage going for those low-owned players, especially those that qualify for the scouting bonus, because it becomes increasingly more difficult at this stage of the competition with only 2 clubs to choose from, and you are limited to 8 players from the same club, 7 from the other, and there isn't much room to maneuver as we had in earlier rounds of the competition. But let me discuss the starting 11 and the captaincy, so you've got the best squad for Matchday 7. I have to emphasise that you should be basing your starting 11 on your predictions, so if you're backing Chelsea to win this game, then go for more Chelsea players and bench some of these PSG options, but that could be a very difficult thing to do. I think the template will gravitate towards the Parisians, but they might not go for the 8 players in the starting 11 that I'm going for at this moment in time. So would be Donnarumma between the sticks, and Robert Sanchez would be the backup, and I'd also go for 4 defenders in Hakimi, Beraldo, Marquinhos and Nuno Mendes. The midfield comprises of Kvaratskhelia, Doué, Dembele, Palmer and Pedro Neto, with João Pedro completing this full 11. The bench also has Cucurella, Nkuku and Delap. He is now available, so you can ignore that suspension icon, so to speak. And in terms of other changes I'd consider, maybe Cucurella over Pedro Neto, just to have that sort of Chelsea defensive coverage in the eventuality that they do keep that clean sheet. But I think this is a very solid platform overall. And if you were to go for the Chelsea route, then I think having Palmer, Pedro Neto, Cucurella, a differential defender, Robert Sanchez in goal, and João Pedro would be a nice balance. You might even want to go about it that way, with 6 players from Chelsea and 5 from PSG, or vice versa, but kind of balance things out a little bit more. But my approach will be to go all in on PSG after what I've seen in this tournament and in the Champions League. They are on the verge of a historical sextuple, which was last achieved by the likes of Pep Guardiola at Barcelona. So after this, their eyes will be firmly set on the UEFA Super Cup final against Tottenham Hotspur. Who would have thought that going into this season? But with the captaincy, I think Hakimi and Dembele are the best options, and I'm going for a 2-0 PSG win as my prediction. Hopefully I don't jinx them, but if that's the case, I think Hakimi could definitely get the armband instead of Ousmane Dembele, and in my case, I've got the maximum captain chip, so I don't need to make that decision per se. but those two stand out above the rest for me. But you've got other options like Doué, maybe another PSG defender, but to be honest, I think Hakimi is the go-to in that regard. And from Chelsea, Joao Pedro and Palmer would be my favourites, but I'm going to favour the PSG win here, and then Dembele and Hakimi just are great Club World Cup fantasy options. They're carrying on what they did in UCL Fantasy, and I'd be very surprised if both of them blanked come Matchday 7. We have reached the end of the best wildcard team for Matchday 7. This is also applicable for non-wildcard squads with 6 free transfers at our disposal. I think we've got plenty of room in terms of getting to that starting 11, the desired one that we all want, and getting that sort of balance that we want to achieve, whether it's 8 PSG free Chelsea, more of a balanced approach of 6 from one team and 5 from the other, or maybe you want to go about things a little bit differently with 7 from Chelsea, 4 from PSG. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but I'm quite bullish on PSG, and I think in terms of Club World Cup fantasy, they have great options in every single position. And another modification you could make to the starting 11 is starting in Nkunku against his former club and displacing Pedro Neto, for example, but it all depends on your predictions. I can't stress that enough, and you don't want to have any regrets come the end of the Club World Cup. This will be the last chance saloon to get another green arrow, finish top of your mini league, and also rise up the rankings one more time. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also hit the notification bell so you're always up to date with my Club World Cup Fantasy, FPL, and UCL Fantasy content. Follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the Championships, further links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, Club World Cup Fantasy League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for the upcoming team selection for Matchday 7, and keep your eyes peeled for the final deadline stream of the Club World Cup.